Thank you, Tim. My fellow pilots, good morning. As your Vice President of Finance, I'm pleased to report that the finances of your union are strong. But before I get to my report, I want to join my colleagues in welcoming the WestJet and Georgian pilot leaders to their first executive board. Welcome, gentlemen and ladies. Now, more than ever, pilots throughout North America are choosing the Airline Pilots Association International. In just the last 3.5 years, we've had 5 airlines join our ranks: JetBlue, Virgin America, Frontier, Air Georgian, and WestJet. Another carrier, as previously mentioned, Encore, is now collecting cards, and we continue to prepare for other possible mergers on the horizon as we talk to pilots from many airlines. Now, none of this happens by accident. In fact, it's the result of hard work and fiscal discipline combining to make us an extremely attractive solution. It comes in part from the contracts we've negotiated, it comes from our safety work, it comes from the efforts of our staff, and it also comes from our finances that have been strong and getting stronger over the past half-decade plus. And that effort is due to each of you here in this room, your discipline, your ability to stay within your budget, and your thoughtful decisions about ALPA's spending and priorities. Author of the best-selling book, Financially Fearless, Alexa von Tobel wrote, and I quote, "A good financial plan is a roadmap that shows us exactly how the choices we make today will affect our future tomorrow," close quote. Having just that kind of plan is how we've gotten to the strong position that we're in today. Yet it's also something to still keep in mind as we take today's positives and prepare for the unknown future. Now, before we take a look at that roadmap, a reminder. In late 2016, this body, the Executive Board, adjusted the dues allocation policy starting on January 1st, 2018. Currently, ALPA's spending limit policy directs dues income to be allocated to 4 accounts as follows. 58% of dues income is allocated to the A&S account, 36.5% is allocated to the MEC account, 3.5% to the OCF account, and 2% to the LEC account. Beginning in 2018, the A&S allocation will be reduced from 58% to 57%, and the MEC allocation will increase from 36.5% to 37.5%. That 1% shift equates to an approximately $2 million transfer from the A&S account to the MECs year over year, further strengthening their finances. The other allocations, as mentioned, will remain unchanged. So let's take a look at the highlights of the 2018 budget, what we've done in 2016, and thus far in 2017, and then the status of some long-term projects. Audited results for 2016 show an operation surplus on a consolidated basis of more than $41 million. That's a major jump from 2015, which was just shy of $4 million, and is attributed to increased profit-sharing payments and new contracts that have made major improvements since the bankruptcy era of a decade ago. For 2016, ALPA's dues revenue was $179.6 million, a 27% increase over 2015. Looking at ALPA's expenses in 2016, flight pay loss incurred was $35.6 million, an 8.3% increase over 2015, attributable again to improved contracts at several MECs. Office and administrative expenses totaled $20.1 million, professional services and other expenses of $11.5 million, which is a 20% drop from 2015. Employee-related costs totaling $69 million reflect a 16% increase over 2015 due to an increase in overall headcount and contractual increases. And finally, travel-related expenses, which remained roughly level year over year. The ALPA entities included in these consolidated results are ALPA, the MCF, 1625 Corporation, the AERF, Kitty Hawk, and ALPA PAC. Now, we've come a long way from the $16 million deficit we dealt with as recently as 2009. Today, we have a consolidated operating surplus of $40.4 million. And last year, I reported a mid-year surplus of $25 million, but the year ended with a surplus of $41.5 million, as you can see here. So you can extrapolate loosely from this chart that income growth will slow for the remainder of the year, but we expect growth to continue nonetheless. Going forward, we must continue to be measured in our actions to provide the resources and services ALPA members expect and deserve, and recapitalize our strategic funds while still demonstrating sound financial judgment. As you see here, our actual and projected dues income since 2009 has steadily risen from our post-9/11 low and are projected to rise again this year. You can also see that we've been conservative with our budgeted dues projections, with actual dues coming in above those projections in each of those years as well. And we also expect similar results for 2017. Understand, though, that while we've exceeded projections the last few years, this will eventually level off, so we continue to be responsible and conservative to account for the cyclical nature of the airline industry. Now, I'm happy to report that last month, ALPA's Executive Council unanimously approved next year's budget. For 2018, we plan for $182.7 million in dues income, which is a 12% increase over the amounts from 2017. It's important to note that, with this budget, the association continues to advance our strategic priorities and support our pilot groups involved in contract negotiations and mergers. The revenue growth in 2018 is being driven by improved contracts, modest growth, profit sharing, and the continued addition of new pilot groups, including, as previously mentioned, Air Georgian and WestJet. The Administrative and Support Account, or A&S account, funds ALPA's national committees, departments, and operations. Expenses cover employee salaries, property rental and maintenance, governing bodies and national committee flight pay loss expenses, and meeting costs. As you know, the A&S account is ALPA's largest account. The net $88.7 million budget for 2018, however, represents just a modest 7% increase over last year. Now, the difference between the policy allocation to the A&S account and the budgeted amount estimated to be spent is called the strategic reserve, which will total approximately $13 million in 2018. The strategic reserve will be used to continue to capitalize Kitty Hawk and MCF reserves and potentially support any facility requirements for national headquarter buildings. A more detailed briefing on the 2018 budget will take place in Delegate Committee 1 later today. This slide highlights our financial performance through August 31st of 2017. $141 million in income on $100.7 million in expense has generated a year-to-date surplus of $40 million. Now, this slide provides a more detailed breakdown of the various sources of this year's income as they compare to the association's largest expense categories. As mentioned earlier, ALPA continues to operate with a surplus. This year, just like last year, we are experiencing increased revenue as compared to budget estimates for A&S income, but we're also witnessing a decrease in actual expenses as compared to budget estimates. Earn more, spend less, demonstrates the continued prudent use of our pilots' hard-earned dues dollars in representing their interests. ALPA's Operating Contingency Fund, or OCF, is a sinking fund with surpluses that are carried forward year over year. The OCF also receives 3.5% of dues income through ALPA's annual spending limit allocation. Thanks to your continued focus on financial discipline, the OCF fund balance continues to move in a positive direction. There has been steady growth and stabilization in the fund over the past decade, and those solid results allowed us to transfer $7 million from the OCF to the MCF to further capitalize it earlier this year. The OCF is divided into three sub-funds: the operating fund, the contingency fund, which is the largest portion by far, and the special projects fund. As I alluded to a moment ago, both the operating fund and contingency fund offer MECs a source of supplemental financing when pilot groups are engaged in contract negotiations or facing other extraordinary circumstances. The current balance of $15.5 million as of August 31st will ensure that MECs have supplemental funds available to them to meet their pilot group's goals and objectives. Now, this slide provides some of the statistics on the year-to-date use of the operating and contingency fund allocations for 2017. 11 MECs have been granted operating fund allocations totaling $3.2 million this year. though only $500,000 of that amount have been used thus far this year, reflecting a significantly reduced burn rate as compared to previous years. The major contingency fund continues to be the association's most visible strategic asset, and the Board of Directors has endorsed initiatives to protect and enhance this important fund. ALPA continues to make concerted efforts to rebuild this fund, as evidenced by the $7 million transfer from the OCF and the allocations from the Strategic Reserve, as previously mentioned. Our efforts to ensure that the MCF remains viable include revised allocation and spending guidelines and the transitioning of both the Kitty Hawk insurance premium and organizing expenses from the MCF to the ANS account. As you can see from the chart, our efforts are beginning to bear fruit. The MCF is trending up, but there's still a lot of work to be done, but this is definitely a positive step in the right direction. Through the first 8 months of 2017, MCF expenses totaled $1.4 million, with 4 pilot groups receiving allocations. As these MECs are in the end game of negotiations, we can expect MCF-related expenses to increase. Now, you've heard at the last few executive boards about ALPA's efforts to replace its 20-year-old patchwork software and data storage network with a new system. We're in the home stretch of this effort, informally known as Project Amber, which will provide a broader range of capabilities, improved efficiencies, and greater security. In the next few months, we will roll out an updated membership system, Aptify, which will improve ALPA's membership services. And early next year, we'll also see us move to dashboards and online reports using Tableau to replace the current spreadsheet-only reporting system. All of these improvements and more to come will enable the various components of ALPA's infrastructure to interact and communicate more effectively while offering additional levels of protection and service to our members. The benefits to date are the eliminated threat of obsolescence, upgraded and improved customization of Infor, a more powerful accounting system, improved bank reconciliations, and enhanced timekeeping and payroll abilities, and procurement reforms. As we get to the end of Project Amber, there are still important improvements that are on the horizon. For members, they'll be able to complete applications, implement changes to coverage, and report life events for ALPA's insurance offerings online. They'll have a more comprehensive and easier to use My Account function on the ALPA website, and they'll see a simplified and more informative billing statement. Your MECs will see improved access to budget dashboards, as previously mentioned, the ability to bank and request or cash out vacation days through ALPA's flight pay loss request system, and online routing for requisition and invoice approvals. And even when Project Amber sunsets, that's not the end of the improvements. Planned follow-ons, call it Amber 2.0, include improved data archiving and budgeting, among other items, as detailed by Bill Couette earlier. Now, I'm going to leave you with a quote from former Secretary of Labor Robert Reich. Regardless of your own political affiliation, I wanted to highlight this quote. He said, quote, "Your most precious possessions is not your financial assets. Your most precious possession is the people you have working there and what they carry around in their heads and their ability to work together." Close quote. For ALPA, that means, again, each of you in this room. Our financial assets, strong as they are, would not be strong without your hard work and decision-making to ensure that our pilots' dues dollars are spent wisely. After all, it's hard enough to spend money wisely when you don't have any, but it's even more challenging to spend money wisely when you do. Thank you for rising to that challenge. And finally, thank you for your attention. Thank you for volunteering to serve your profession and your fellow pilots and their families.
Good job, Randy.